Hey, it took me 5 days to complete this entire sketchbook, and I love a lot of the pieces that I created in it. In this video, I'm going to be sharing how I did it, why I did it, what worked, what didn't, and how you can do the same too. So starting off with, I guess, one of the most important questions, why bother doing it at all? And I feel like the reasons will be different for everyone, but I think in honesty, and you may relate to this, I just really missed creating art. I felt like I was creating in little pockets of time, but I really just wanted some really long creative time to just dedicate to a sketchbook. And the way that I wanted to do that was through a challenge. And it probably shouldn't really be the case, but it kind of felt like by giving myself a challenge, I gave myself the authority to actually make time for my art and reclaim it. So it kind of gave me the permission that I needed to dedicate the time that I wanted to creating my art and to actually finishing this sketchbook. In terms of the rules, let me be honest, I thought that I could do this in 24 hours. Now, obviously, spoiler alert, I did not complete the sketchbook in 24 hours. It, in fact, took me 5 days. That being said, I do still feel like I could do it, so maybe in the future I will. But the reason that I mentioned that is because initially I started this challenge with the idea being that I was going to dedicate a whole 24 hours to just creating art. It really gave me that jump start that I needed. And because my focus was on the time frame, it meant that my aim or my focus wasn't on creating perfect works of art. It was just genuinely on trying to create as much art as possible in my sketchbook in 24 hours. And sometimes that's what you need to get out of that perfectionism mindset or that block or whatever it is that's going on that's kind of meant that actually you're not creating as much as you want. You just set yourself this fun little challenge and dive into it. This art challenge was part of a bigger art challenge that I was doing with my art members in February, where essentially it's a low buy / no buy of art supplies and a focus on art wall, creating more art than we normally do. And it was so wonderful. And as part of that, I felt inspired to do this challenge where I was trying to complete the sketchbook, but also marry that with an art bingo challenge that I have also created. My membership has a range of different resources, Zoom sessions, live sessions, videos, and just a really wonderful community of other artists who enjoy creating together, irrespective of skill levels and the mediums that we like. The focus is more on community and really staying inspired and creating more art over anything else. So I'll leave that linked for you in case you're interested. But one of the things that I was doing as part of that is these two challenges. This kind of informed the rules that I created for this challenge, this 5-day sketchbook challenge. And that was not buying any new art supplies. So using the supplies that I had, to aim being that I wanted to learn my supplies a bit more, but also just focus on what I have. And then the other part of it was using the art bingo prompt list that I have created. I have left everything linked down below in the description for you, including real-time live replays, the art bingo prompt list, and my art membership in case you think that we would be a great fit and you want to create together and have even more inspirations. All of that is in the description, and some of the freebies are for a limited time only, so be sure to check it out. And then the other thing was just to focus on the fact that done is better than perfect. My aim was to finish the sketchbook, not to create masterpieces, just to enjoy the process and have the perfect excuse that I needed to just create as much art as possible. It still surprises me that a lot of people don't know that a lot of our supplies, unfortunately, can go to waste and expire if we don't use them in time. And so I really didn't want that to happen. And I thought that this would be the perfect excuse to use the sketchbooks that I really love and I really enjoy and basically make sure that it won't go to waste. If you've been on this channel long enough, you will know that a lot of the time I would struggle with feeling like my art supplies were too precious to use. And it is still something that I struggle with from time to time. But one of the things that I know is that as much as I may sometimes feel like my art isn't actually good enough for me to be using that supply, what I can definitely guarantee is that I would rather it have my quote unquote bad art than have nothing and then I'm not able to use it. So I'm really battling that mindset and focusing on using my supplies as much as possible. I picked my sketchbook, which was the Etcher Everyday Sketchbook, which is one of my favorite sketchbooks. And I decided to commit this sketchbook to this challenge. For you, it might be that you're using a sketchbook that you have tried to complete, or maybe it's one of your favorite sketchbooks. It doesn't really matter. The aim of this challenge is to use the supplies that you already have and to dedicate time to creating. I keep reiterating the fact that your art is more than good enough for your supplies, because that is something that I really needed to be reminded of and to learn when I was starting and continuing to create art. And just in case you are in the same boat, this is a reminder that you deserve to use the good art supplies. And I just want to highlight some of the art pieces that really honed in that lesson for me. One of the things was that obviously I didn't want my sketchbook to go to waste, and thankfully all the pages were completely fine. But some of the supplies that weren't great were my acrylic markers, which ran out. Kind of learned that in this piece. This piece took me the longest amount of time to create. And this piece taught me a lot of lessons. It's completely different to what I normally create. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think in part that's why it took me so long. But when I was creating it, I did find that actually a lot of my acrylic markers that I had kept for, I don't know, the perfect artwork or the perfect time have dried up, and I can't really use them anymore. Some of them are completely dry and it is what it is, and some of them are like maybe don't function quite as well, but I was able to reactivate them. And it was that kind of extra motivation that I needed to actually remind myself to use these supplies. I've put them on my desk, which you will have seen in my studio tour, and if you haven't, I'll leave it linked for you. But yeah, so now I have them to hand, and again, it was just a reminder of making use of the supplies that we have, because otherwise they will go to waste. Thankfully, everything else that I tried to use is working fine, but that was a really great reminder. In all my videos, I like asking a question to get to know you better, and I normally do it at the end, but I'm thinking of doing it a little bit earlier. So obviously 5 days is the quickest I have ever finished a sketchbook, but I am curious to know, what is the quickest time you've ever finished one, or how long does it normally take you to do so? I am really curious to know, and also I'm curious to know if you're going to try this challenge yourself. Another benefit of focusing on using your supplies and not necessarily buying new supplies is that it really gave me the opportunity to learn the supplies that I already had and to use the supplies that perhaps I haven't used in a really long time. So this meant that I was learning new skills, I was playing around with new color compositions, I was playing around with different mixes in terms of both mixes of color but also mixes of different supplies. I was also just learning the supplies, but some pieces that really stood out to me were like this piece, where I was using the flash paints, the Frank Bourgeois flash paints, which I've had for such a long time, and for reasons unknown I just hadn't used. I'd got them because I wanted to use them in mixed media, but as I said, my experience with using them was really limited, and this challenge was the perfect opportunity to actually start using them, to learn more about them. This also doubles as the perfect excuse to be extra creative and to think about creative solutions, because you may not have the perfect shade or the perfect supply or the perfect whatever it is that you wanted to get. Instead, you try and recreate it with what you do have. I feel like that's how sometimes some greatness is born, and that's how you can learn and discover new things. One of the pieces that really brought that lesson for me was this piece here. The prompt that I had was using 3 colors, and if you don't know, the vast majority of the artwork that I've created in this sketchbook were I created during a live stream, so you can actually see the real-time process of them being created. And during the live stream, Miranda Watson, who also has a YouTube channel, had given me the suggestion of 3 colors, which were phthalo blue, burnt umber and orange, completely different to the palette that I normally create. But through it, I was able to create this art piece, which is different to what I create, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the challenge, and it just reminded me that you don't have to have the perfect colors or the perfect supplies to enjoy the process and to learn something and to enjoy it. The fact that you already have what you need to do this art challenge, and that I already had everything I needed to do this challenge, was again an excellent motivator. The next thing to be aware of is that starting is quite often the toughest part. I felt like I didn't have enough time, I was too busy, I should be more productive, I should do something else. The list of reasons not to create art sometimes can feel really long. In honesty, as I kind of mentioned at the beginning, a lot of it just wasn't true. When I looked at my screen time and I saw, like, oh wow, look how much time I spend on randomness that don't leave me feeling better at the end of it, I just had to come to the realization that if this was something that was important to me, I would have to try and make time for it. And the way that I did it was just literally blocking off that day in my calendar where I knew new on this day, I am going to create art, because I thought I could finish it in one day. But I just told myself on this day, I'm going to create art. And because it was kind of scheduled in, I was working towards that, trying to finish everything that I needed to do in time, really being intentional with being like, this one day, I am going to create art. And sometimes that's how you have to treat it, the same way that you have other appointments and other things to do. Just trying to have a look at your calendar over the next week or month and just seeing where in that time you can dedicate a day or a half a day to just creating art. And just so that you can dedicate that time, just weigh up which one would you rather do, and then do it accordingly. Or maybe it's that you do them together if it's possible. Doing it for a day then kind of spearheaded my creativity, where I then was really wanted to finish the challenge. So I then started looking for more times and days that I could actually do it in order to complete this entire sketchbook. And all in all, it ended up taking 5 days, of which added all together, it was probably 24 hours or just under 24 hours, but obviously stretched over the period of 5 days. If you're like me, try if possible to convert some of that scrolling time to painting time instead. And I say this because I feel like quite often there'll be things that we do that don't necessarily leave us feeling better, but we do them anyway out of habit, or because it's like a mindless task, or because it maybe makes us feel good in the moment but not after. So look for those kind of activities and see if actually you can replace it with time creating art instead. And then one of the final things that kind of helped me make time for it and just overcome this hurdle that I have when it comes to starting is just eliminating some of that decision fatigue that can sometimes come. When I actually have time to create, I then start asking myself, oh, well, what am I going to create? What am I going to use? What am I going to this? What am I going to do that? All these different decisions that I need to make in order to create just end up meaning that I either spend most of my time looking for a reference and not actually creating art, or most of my time trying to decide what I need to do and not creating, or just giving it up. Sometimes just making all those decisions takes away from the actual creative process. Sometimes it's part of the creative process, and that's completely fine. But one of the things that I did to eliminate that I've shared with you already in the past is twofold. One was having multiple folders of inspiration. When I'm feeling really inspired, when I see a reference or I'm taking a picture of something that I'm like, wow, this is wonderful, I want to create it someday, I will put it in a folder. And I have different folders for landscapes, different folders for different things. It then meant that I told myself I was going to use this one folder and go through it and just start creating. And they were all landscapes, because I'm really enjoying painting landscapes at the moment. But that eliminated the decision of, well, what am I going to create and when? I just needed to know, look, I found this inspiring at some point. It's a landscape. I'm going to start at the beginning and I'm going to work my way down. Decision made, because I found them inspiring at some point. And I recommend that you do that as well. Just curate a little folder of things that you find inspiring, whether they be screenshots or pictures you've taken yourself or clippings from a magazine, whatever it is, and just have it to hand so that when you actually have time to create, you don't start spending lots and lots of time trying to figure out what you're going to create and how. And then the next thing that really helped was the art bingo that I already alluded to. I actually have created 2. One is for everybody, another one is for my members. So if you're a member, you get extra ones as well. The way that I created it is that quite oftentimes I will have a list of different things that I want to do that maybe I think, oh, I'll do that next time, or I'd like to try this, or I'd like to try that, but maybe I haven't done it before, it will take a lot of time, or it feels too new, or I want to do something else. I'll make some sort of excuse a lot of the time as to why I can't do that in that very moment. And what I will do is make a list of it. Some of the things, for example, will be creating with my left hand, or doing continuous line drawings. Maybe I'm just curious doing, or maybe I've seen another artist try and I want to try it as well, but it doesn't feel like right then and there is the right time to create. But because I have put it all in a list, I was able to again have that, I guess, inspiration, but in prompt form of different prompts that I was going to do for this challenge. And I called it Art Bingo because I put it on a 5x5 grid so that I could try and get 5 in a row. And it was random. I didn't know how I was going to do the grid because the aim was to try and do as many of them as possible. And there were prompts that I found interesting, inspiring, I was curious about. And the beauty of it is that you can make your own. If, of course, you don't want to, you can use the ones that I have created. It's a long list of inspirations, so you can just make your own grids and change it from time to time. That's the beauty of it, that you can just do it as many times as you want. But on this list, I had things like continuous line drawing, which I know that I really enjoy, but I don't always do. Drawing with pen, which is something that I used to do quite a lot back in the day, but now I tend to spend most of my time painting. And so this was kind of a reminder that actually I enjoy drawing as well. So that was nice. It could be drawing or painting with your non-dominant hand, or doing an artist style or a master study, or the possibilities are endless, really and truly. But the beauty of this, because we don't want something endless, because I don't want to stay there forever trying to decide, is that I put them all down on a list, and there's one or two ways to go about it. Either start at the top and work your way down, or you just pick random ones, because it gives you direction, but it also allows for creativity. So it's not that I can't do anything if I don't want to, it's that I have enough direction to not have to waste time trying to figure out what to do, but then I have enough flexibility to actually say, oh, well, I want to do this prompt, or I want to do that prompt. So that was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. I kept doing it throughout the month. I kept doing it over and over and over throughout the months because I enjoyed it. From that, some of my favorite pieces in this sketchbook that really represent that are creating art with my left hand. Honestly, I feel like I've tried creating art with my left hand in the past before, and I didn't really enjoy it that much. It was something that I was like, oh, well, I want to try it anyway, try it again, but I didn't enjoy it. And I'm so glad I tried it again, because I really liked the piece that I created and I really enjoyed the process. I don't know how or why I enjoyed it this time, but I really, really did. Some of the other prompts that I really enjoyed creating were sketching with pen. It's almost like I had forgotten how much I enjoy drawing and sketching with pen, and that's how I initially started creating art. So that was really nice to go back to. Other prompts that I really enjoyed, creating art of different sizes, and this was really good and really interesting because it kind of made me want to thumbnail, which is something that I've thought about doing but hadn't done before. And I've shared the real-time process for my members as well, if you're curious or interested. But then also using different art supplies. As I say, the inspiration was plenty, and that's why I wanted to share that with you. Having these prompts, I feel like, just removed that resistance that sometimes we can feel when we want to start but we don't know what to do because the plan is already set out. And then one of the other things that I mention quite a lot is thinking about your creative space and just lowering the barrier to entry. And I mention this all the time because honestly, I'm so subjective to it. If I have to go through a lot of effort to do something, then chances are I'm probably not going to do it, especially if I'm tired and it's the end of a busy day. So what I mean by that is things like, if you normally create art on your desk, just having some of the supplies that you're going to use to hand. If you know that you're going to create art on the couch, maybe just having a little, pouch or a little bag where you have your supplies to the side so that they are there and ready to go. And just making sure that, obviously everybody's different, but if you're the type who, if there's a lot of resistance, you're not going to do it, just making sure that you do things that will reduce that resistance and make it easier for you to create. Maybe that when you're going to work, you commute and you have time to sketch there. So you, I don't know, put a little sketchbook and a pencil or a pen inside your bag so that you have that to hand to create. Or maybe you drive some places and quite often you have to wait in the car and you can have a little kit in your car, or maybe you have a little kit by your couch, on your desk, by your bed. Where and when you'll have time will be different for everybody. But the key thing is just trying to put those things in place when you have time, when you have energy, so that when you feel creative, you don't have to waste any of that creative energy on doing anything that you don't want to, and you can just jump into creating straight away. For me, that meant that when I was doing this challenge, I had my sketchbook on my desk. I had the supplies that I wanted to use to hand, ready to go, open. For some people that will be a bit overwhelming having everything, so maybe it's that you put everything in a bag, so you just open the bag and start creating. I'm giving you all these different ideas because everybody is different, but the key thing is that if you persevere, you will find something that works for you and you will reap the benefits. You will really enjoy creating art and it will be so worth it. One of the other things that I embraced in this challenge was being flexible. So initially I started off, as I mentioned, with the references and the art bingo prompts. As the challenge went on, there came times where I wanted to try different things where perhaps they didn't necessarily fit into the art bingo prompt. Did I tell myself, oh no, this is not the challenge, I'm not going to do it? No, of course not. I just kept going. If I was really inspired to do something, even if it didn't fully fit into the challenge that I had initially created, I went with it because the whole point of this challenge was to spark creativity and to want to create more. And I took it as a sign that it was working, the fact that I wanted to keep creating, even if it wasn't exactly in the way that I had pre-anticipated with the prompts list that I had created. And some of the art that I created that weren't necessarily related to a prompt, but were as a result of the art challenge, are some of my favorites. I've really enjoyed some of the landscapes that I created and some of the art that I created in general. So to give you an example, this landscape that I created, I absolutely love. And this doesn't have a prompt at all, but it is, I just love the colors inside it. I love the textures. It's something that I started off during the live stream, and then as time went on, I just kept painting and adding more details and using different supplies and playing around with different things. And this was as a result of feeling so inspired from the art challenge that I had been doing. Another piece that I had created that again wasn't a direct prompt, but was heavily inspired by the art that I was creating. Then I randomly decided that actually I wanted to paint and create fruit, which obviously isn't in keeping with the landscape references that I had created. But because I really wanted to do it, I did it anyway, because as I said, the whole point of this was to get inspired and to start creating art. And that is what I did. And I feel like it all led to it being some of my favorite art inside the sketchbook as well. And so if you feel inspired to create something, then do. It doesn't matter if it's not in the prompt list that I have created or you have created for yourself. The whole point of this is to spark creativity and to be inspired. So if you are, roll with it, see what happens. And then for the next piece, if you want, go back to the prompt list or keep going. It's all completely fine. It's your sketchbook. You can do what you want in it. And then again, remember to use the good supplies too. So as much as I'm saying you use what you have, that definitely extends to the really good supplies that you may have that are hidden away that perhaps you haven't used as much, the supplies that you've forgotten about. You can maybe make a list of all the supplies that you want to try using in this challenge and just try ticking them off, and as you go, you'll use everything that you have to discover what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, what works, what doesn't, and to just really enjoy this whole creativity. Now, one of the things that I saw from one of my members called Laura, who'd sent it to me, was a video talking about art supplies being an experience. So almost like going to a gallery or buying a train ticket or enjoying a good meal or going to a concert. All these things are things that are meant to be enjoyed in the moment as opposed to stored forever. And when you think about it like that, in terms of using the watercolor, not only for the art piece that it creates, but also for the enjoyment of getting to use it and see how the water moves, and the fact that part of that supply or part of the reason for that supply is for that experience as opposed to the actual physical entity of it, I just thought was a really beautiful way to look at it and to actually think about the supplies that you're using. And they're not made to be there forever. They are made to be enjoyed and to be used and to be an experience. And I really love thinking about it like that. So enjoy your sketchbook, enjoy all your supplies, enjoy the free prompt list that I have created down below and my membership, and enjoy this next video where I share even more of my favorites. Bye and God bless.